Hi, my name is Carl Anderson, and I'm a double bassist with the Boston Symphony Orchestra. Um, because of my newness with the orchestra, I've been asked to make a brief video about audition preparation. And the things that I'm going to say are not necessarily going to be, don't take them as they're like as things that will work necessarily for you if you are taking auditions, but they certainly worked for me, and maybe you can glean some kind of information from this to help with your own personal audition process. So one of the things that I started doing was started listening differently to music. I set aside time in the morning to sit down with any piece of music, not necessarily one of the pieces that I was slotted to play in an audition, but just some piece of music. And I kept a journal right next to my computer, right next to my desk, and I would journal about whichever piece of music I was listening to. And it wasn't just about, I wouldn't journal necessarily about things that I liked or disliked, and I wasn't writing about, this harmony change or this harmony change. I was listening so that I could fully form an opinion about a composer, or about how any music should go, or I have broader things. Memories of playing these pieces of music. So one of these things, I guess to specify, I was listening to Brahms' Second Symphony, and that's a favorite of audition panels everywhere for basses. I would listen to this piece a lot, but this particular time I started journaling not necessarily about tempo or stroke or what's happening in the first violin, or I wasn't score studying. I was just writing about a memory that I had from when I must have been 18 or 19, and it was the final concert at Music Academy of the West, which is this great summer festival in Santa Barbara. And I remember I was writing about how wonderful that experience was for me. This was at the end of the summer, and I had the bass section was wonderful, and they're still all dear friends of mine now. And we really got along well, and we're playing the final concert. It's this great piece, and I remember viscerally how I felt during that concert. And it's easy to forget in a practice room, working up to an audition. It's easy to forget why we play instruments, and having an association with a memory like that makes practicing Brahms 2 and all the time, these 24 bars or whatever, it makes it a lot more enjoyable to play, and it makes it a little less academic. Of course, you have to put in the very fine detailed work, but I found it easier to practice and to enjoy when I had a positive association with it, instead of trying to remember all the things my teacher ever told me in this, minute and a half of music. So that's what I was doing. I would journal, and I would listen to music, and I would journal about it. And that helped me form opinions and tastes, and how, I developed an idea of how, of ways in which things should go. So I had a stronger opinion about what I thought Mozart should sound like, or what I thought Brahms or Strauss should sound like, because I was listening to a lot of their compositions outside of these pieces that I'd always been working on. And this helped me realize that in an audition setting, that 50% of the work that you put in is in a practice room. And I think that the other 50% is work that you can't possibly do. You can't practice getting votes in an audition. And so I always was trying to play to a panel I tried to guess what a panel wanted. Um, and I realized that I was really bad at guessing. Um, and so I took the time to really develop my own opinion and my own tastes. And as long as I was in integrity with myself in the audition, that whether the panel liked it or not was not my concern. It was that if I was to play well according to me, that's the best I could do. And so that was freeing in a way, that I wasn't always concerned about, quite frankly, these perfect strangers behind a screen, what they were looking for, because you won't be able to guess what they're looking for. So that was one of these pivotal moments where I decided that, I mean, when you play a piece, you're equally right and wrong at the same time, and that's what I figured out. Someone's gonna hate it, and someone's gonna love it, and the person who loves it should be you. And you can't cater to someone else's tastes in an audition setting. You just have to do exactly what you feel is right. This brings me to kind of this moment in the process when I was taking all of these auditions, that I couldn't, that mentally I couldn't take caring about the result only. That I felt somehow less fulfilled or less of a human because of these results. That I thought, I kept on advancing to semifinals, and I had never been to finals until I won this job, actually. But I was in semifinals, and I thought, is this as good as is this as far as I get? And that weighs on you, because so much of your personhood can be invested in a result that you aren't in control of. And so it's very easy to feel wild and totally out of control when you don't get a result that you were hoping for. And it's easy to feel like your work was invalidated because you didn't win. And so I started to focus more on kind of who I was outside of an audition process and who I was away from the bass. And I think I learned this term in Alexander technique when I was at Rice. It's the term end gaining. And end gaining is this term that it means that you're so obsessed with a goal or a result that you try to skip over the process. And I realized that I had been end gaining in taking auditions, that I was obsessed with winning and doing well, and it came at the expense of everything else. And so I started focusing on who I was away from the bass. I would go and be active and go to the gym, and I would read and sleep an appropriate amount of hours, and I would take time for myself. I ate well. I was trying to treat myself better. I would meditate. I did all these things away from the bass, hoping that it would, that it was in fact part of the process, as well as that your practice is only going to be as good as you feel that day. And I had a bunch of bad days of practice in a row, and I realized that it was going to take me, I some of the time that I felt like that I was spending in the gym, I was like, I could be practicing right now. But I knew that going and exercising was going to lend itself better to my holistic health, and it would inform bass, that, it would help my back pain, or it would help clear my mind, or help me relax, or what have you. So it ended up being these things that I was doing away from the bass ended up helping me in the practice room. It's also another thing that informed me was that if you spend so much time in the practice room that you kind of forget what you sound like, or where you're going, or where you've been, because you're with yourself 24 hours a day, and you're with yourself in the practice room every time. And so it's hard to recognize progress, or and to listen to yourself with an objective ear. And a few ways that I combated this was, of course, recording yourself all the time, and being a critic that is aware and fair, that you would listen to yourself play back in the recording, and you would just be honest with yourself about how you thought it sounded. And so recording was a really great way of listening objectively. Another thing that I did in the practice room was that I would take my eyes out of the equation. I would either close them or focus on a single point, and I would use just my ears and be distracted by nothing else. And that helped me. I was able to train myself that, like, some things weren't sounding as good as I thought they were, and it was easy to establish with in parallel with an opinion about how you think something should go. When you take something, a variable, out of the equation when you practice, it's easier to know if you're hitting that ideal, or you're coming across the way that you want to. Another thing with end gaining that I realized is that in the attempt to get to where I wanted to go faster, I would shirk over some of the practice things that I needed to do for myself. So for the BSO audition, I had to learn these 2 new Bach movements. And it did take a lot of willpower not to play these Bach movements, as quickly as possible, learn them as quickly as possible. And so I took a very long time playing them very slowly, maybe a quarter tempo, until I knew that I could do it in integrity with what I wanted them to sound like. So I never tried to jump ahead and play them before I could. And I think that this lent itself to other excerpts as well, is that I was trying to it was like I was rushing to the end, in a bigger picture rushing, that I would try and play something up to tempo, even though there were certain aspects of it that I needed to spend more time on practicing slowly. So I think that was a really helpful thing, was just tell yourself that you aren't going to play something before you can control every aspect of it. And that required me bringing a metronome to auditions, and I would play them. I mean, in the warm-up room, I would play them at half tempo and then work them up to full tempo, just to make sure that I really had it all there, that nothing was missing. So yeah, that's kind of the process for audition taking for me, is that I started to listen to music differently. I started to focus on myself away from the bass and who I was, and to treat myself better. I stopped focusing on the results of an audition and started to focus on the process. And then that informed my practice. Anyway, I hope this helps. I hope there's something in there that you can take away and maybe try out for your next audition. But yeah, thank you.